What's up, guys? I'm BTC. We just got brand new information on what the new crowd control changes are going to be. Jeff Kaplan made a pretty large post on the forums explaining all their reasons and what the changes are going to be. He says, later this afternoon, we'll be deploying changes to the experimental card, hopefully. I wanted to give a little insight to the changes that we're trying. The term crowd control, or CC, is used to refer to abilities that heroes can do to other heroes that cause them to lose control of their character. Examples include Mei's ability to freeze you, Reinhardt knocking you down with Earthshatter, or getting stuck in Junkrat's trap. In Overwatch, we need to walk a fine line with crowd control abilities. On the one hand, we are a highly competitive FPS. On the other hand, one of the defining things about Overwatch is the fact that our heroes have amazing abilities and mobility. We understand that crowd control abilities can cause a lot of frustration. Anytime control is taken away from you, it generally doesn't feel good. So these experiments are targeted at certain heroes, specifically at their crowd control abilities, with the intent being that they will affect you less and have a lower overall impact on the game. The one exception on this round of experiments is Roadhog. We actually want to try to buff his ult a little bit to make it more impactful. It's not as much of a pure buff as it might seem at first. While you will knock enemies back more, you're also likely to push them out of damage more unless you corner them. Internally, we have some bigger ideas about crowd control for Overwatch 2 and are trying some experiments. We're not able to bring the experimental card more fundamental and larger changes. We'll see how this round goes, and we'd love feedback. Hopefully, we can put some of these changes live if the test goes well. So what they're probably planning for Overwatch 2, my guess, would be some sort of resistance to any kind of crowd control effect. This is just pure speculation on my part, but they added this sort of thing in World of Warcraft many years ago, and Jeff Kaplan and a bunch of the other guys that are working on Overwatch came from World of Warcraft. And I think it's likely that what we would end up seeing is some sort of stun resistance or CC resistance, where when you get hit by one thing, then you become immune to other things for a certain time period, basically, is what I'm guessing. And that's why they can't put it on the experimental mode. It's probably going to take more stuff with Overwatch 2. But getting to the changes themselves, hero changes, this is in the experimental mode. Roadhog, Whole Hog knockback increased by 20%. So again, this is going to add kind of more CC to the ability, but because it's pushing the enemy away, they're actually going to end up taking less damage from Roadhog's ultimate. So it has more of a zoning kind of pushback effect, but overall less damage. Reinhardt's Earthshatter, the knockdown duration was lowered from 3 seconds down to 2.5 seconds. That's just a flat nerf, although generally that's probably still going to be good enough for Reinhardt to do what he needs to do. Sigma, this is a massive nerf to Sigma. He's already one of the least played tanks, one of the least played characters in the game, and this is going to be just even worse for the character. Accretion knockdown duration is now a fixed 0.8 seconds instead of scaling with distance. Cast time was reduced from 0.75 to 0.65. So you're going to be able to use Accretion much faster, but now if they're far away, they're not going to get knocked down for 1 or 2 seconds. Instead, it's only going to be 0.8 seconds every single time. That is a substantial nerf to Sigma. Next is McCree, the flashbang stun duration, lowered from 0.85 to 0.7. That's a bit of a nerf. It's going to make it more difficult for dealing things with, like, Tracer and Genji. It's going to make it a little bit more difficult. And what you're probably going to end up seeing is just more stun and fan instead of trying to stun and then get a critical. I mean, it's still going to be possible. It's just going to be a lot more difficult. So this, and we'll talk about this in a second here, but Mei, the endothermic blaster freeze stun duration lowered from 1.5 to 1.3. That's still a pretty good amount of time. And the blizzard duration, which is our ultimate, was lowered from 5 seconds down to 4.25 seconds. And then Ana, sleep duration lowered from 6 seconds down to 5 seconds. Brig, the shield bash stun duration was lowered from 0.75 to 0.65. So 3 of the characters I want to point out here, you have Sigma, McCree, and Brigitte. All of those stuns now last for less than a second. In a game like Dota, this sort of thing would be called a mini stun as opposed to a normal stun. It's not quite a mini stuns tend to last like 0.1, 0.2 seconds, something like that. So it's not really a mini stun, it kind of is. But anyways, the point of these types of things is not for complete control over the enemy. It's generally about just interrupting their attack or interrupting their channeling ability, which is basically what these are going to do now. So Sigma McCree and Brigitte, their stuns are not necessarily to lock the enemy in place anymore. It's just to kind of quickly interrupt them. Whatever they're doing, it just interrupts them. And then, you know, it's less than a second. Some of, you know, Briggs is almost half a second. So these are very, very, very fast. Now, when all of these stuns are put into the game, you're going to naturally see a sort of an indirect buff to characters that need crowd control to be dealt with. So characters like Tracer and Genji and Hammond and Doomfist, those types of characters get kind of an indirect buff because all of these crowd control measures have now been nerfed. It's going to make it more difficult to deal with them. I think Tracer in particular is going to be a much more difficult to deal with situation, particularly for lower bracket players. But there you go, guys. Now, later on, they're supposed to have the patch. I was expecting them to drop the patch about 20 minutes ago, but they didn't drop it for whatever reason. I don't know when it's going to happen. Maybe it's late afternoon. Maybe it might be early evening. I've seen them push out some patches. Some of the recent ones have been as late as 7 or 8 at night. Maybe it's because of all the stuff going around right now. But when they have all the stuff added to the game, I'll show you the in-game demonstrations as well. What do you guys think about these changes? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell to get notified. You can get some cool gear, join my Discord server, or follow me on social media with the links down in the description below. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters, and remember, always blame the controller because it's never your fault.